Carolina Panthers and the Atlanta Falcons. Right now, the Atlanta Falcons are 3.5. They are on the other side of that 3. Favorites over the Carolina Panthers. 39.5 is your total. Adam, we know we are getting a rookie quarterback for the Panthers. We are getting basically a first-time starter for the Falcons in Desmond Ridder. And the Carolina Panthers, from what they did in the offseason, kind of make you think that they have a chance to be a good team this year. They went and signed like older kind of veteran dudes. It wasn't like they were building for 2 years from now. Like when you go get Miles Sanders and Adam Thielen and some of these guys like that, it's like you think you can win like today, because those guys don't even have 2 years like left in the tank. And so some interesting moves by them. Everybody's super hot on the Falcons. Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, a bunch of playmakers there on the offensive side of the ball. And they did go make some strides on the defensive side from a free agent standpoint.
Let's talk about this from the perspective of the Carolina Panthers first, because you just talked about the veterans that they signed. And I think it's a smart team building move because you made this enormous investment in Bryce Young, right? You paid Chicago to go up and get the number 1 pick, and you're bringing in a new head coach in Frank Reich. And I think you need to give Frank Reich every opportunity to evaluate Bryce Young as quickly as possible. Now, some people would say, hey, maybe the best way to do that would have been to hold on to DJ Moore, but you didn't have that choice. Like Chicago drove the deal on getting DJ Moore as someone to use to evaluate Justin Fields when they talk about how they're building their team. So I can see trying to put a little bit of help around it. That said, they didn't put enough help around Bryce Young, I don't think, to get a real great read on him. I don't think this offensive line is going to be all that fantastic, but I cannot get to the point of seeing the Falcons as more than a field goal favorite here. The hype train for me is way, way too fast on the Falcons, and it's largely because of Desmond Ridder, right? I think basically what you're doing here with the Falcons is you're trying to, in your head, recreate a San Francisco situation, right? Great skill position players, and the line is improving and is better, and you've got a good offensive mind in Arthur Smith. But what if you had seen nothing out of Brock Purdy? That's what you have with Desmond Ridder right now. You have seen absolutely nothing encouraging out of Desmond Ridder. You haven't seen it in the preseason. You didn't see it last year. And there are far too many people for my tastes going out there and saying, oh, well, if Desmond Ridder just makes the jump to a league average quarterback, what have you seen to suggest that he's a bottom half of the league quarterback right now? You've seen nothing to that effect. And you're also asking a lot of this defense, which was not good at all last year, and has added a lot of good pieces. I think it's, you have to speak for what they did in free agency and say you added in the right places, right? You added on the defensive line, you added with a quality safety, but I don't know that you necessarily can make the jump to say in week 1, this defense will be ready to go. I'm passing on this game entirely.
Yeah, Steven, if we take a look, I mean, the one thing I guess if you want to try to paint a rosy picture here for the Panthers would be, we typically see these like stud rookie offensive linemen, if they're actually going to be studs, they take a pretty big leap in year 2. Like the rookie year's kind of figuring things out, and then year 2 they kind of take a pretty big leap. Ike Ekwonu at the left tackle position was not bad as a rookie, and then like again they typically take a pretty big step in year 2 if they're going to be good. And so you could kind of look at that. You've got Chark, and you've got Mingo, and like you've got these Sanders. They went and got Hayden Hurst as well. So it's kind of like they put enough, I think, around Bryce Young on that side. And of course, the defense for the Panthers, you can't really question what the defense is going to bring to the table here. I mean, it's a pretty stacked defense actually, outside of Donta Jackson at corner, which actually, he just had a really bad season last year. He's been kind of like a league average corner. He's never been good, but he's been a league average corner at least the majority of his career, and was just towards the bottom of the year last year. So if he can have a bounce back, then I think you're feeling pretty good about this defense. I just can't. I can't get to over a field goal with this Falcons team sight unseen. Like unless it could be this this dynamic offense that everybody's saying that it could. It very well could be. I'm not going to say that it won't. I mean, listen, you have a freak at the running back position. You have a freak at the tight end position. And I think Drake London's really good as well. So it could be. I haven't seen it, so I'm not going to make that jump quite yet.
I'm willing to pay to see if the Falcons can win by more than a field goal as well. I'm with you guys. I bet Carolina plus 3.5. To be honest with you, I was going to tell you that this was the spread bet of the week I felt the least confident about, but you both made me feel a lot better all of a sudden. So I appreciate that. But I mostly agree with you guys. I mean, Carolina's defense returns a ton of talent, and I love the coaching upgrade too. Everybody's talking about Frank Reich coming in as head coach, but to get Aviro Evero over from Denver to steal their defensive coordinator, to do what he did with Denver's defense, despite having such a putrid offense, was really phenomenal work. And now he gets a defense that has just as much talent, I think, as Denver's. So, and a unit that was top 5 in run stop win rate a year ago. And we know Atlanta's going to want to run the heck out of the ball. So combine that with Atlanta and their pace statistics from last year. If Art Smith's going to do that again, it's really not a recipe for winning by more than a field goal very often. He was 27th in overall pace. He was the slowest pace in the NFL when leading by a touchdown or more, increasing the opportunities for a team to come back and cover a number like this. And even when they were trailing by 7+ points, he was still 24th in pace. So you're shrinking games, you're increasing variance in these games by week to week, and it's just not a recipe for blowing teams out. So to Adam's point about Desmond Ridder, agree with that as well. I sat back and looked at all of the steam on the season-long props and the win totals on the Falcons, and to me, it just seems so much schedule-based. They have the number 2 easiest schedule by opponent win totals, because I couldn't find anything to really be so bullish about the Falcons in the same way that people were about the Eagles last year with the talent that was on the Eagles roster. So I think it's very much schedule-based here with Atlanta, and I'm willing to pay to see if Art Smith's willing to open things up a little bit offensively here. But the last question I'll ask you, Matt, about this game is, we at least should acknowledge that the Carolina offense with a new head coach and a rookie quarterback did not exactly instill confidence in the preseason. I'm just curious if you care about that at all.
Yeah, no, listen, I think you take some of the stuff in the preseason like with a grain of salt, and certainly rookie quarterback stuff for me, trying to get used to the NFL or whether it doesn't really affect me all that much. I try not to be biased by a dude who's stepping out into, the deep end, like right off the bat. And so it doesn't really bother me all that much. I think from a prop standpoint though, guys, like unlike what we saw with the Lions and Gibbs, where for whatever reason they didn't want to use him as much, like we're going to see a lot of Bijan Robinson, right? Like, I don't think that we're going to see this offense that Bijan Robinson doesn't have 16 to 18 touches. Like,
you would think,
like,
Matt,
be it carries, be it like carry, because his rush and receiving yards prop is 88, and like it would shock me if he didn't have 88 combined yards, like between rushing and receiving in this thing. Like, it would shock me. But didn't Art Smith criminally? I think he gets 18 to 20 touches.
Didn't Art Smith criminally underutilize Kyle Pitts last year though? And wasn't there already talk about Tyler Algier getting some run by Art Smith earlier this year? So I get you, theory of rational coaching, this should be a slam dunk. But I'm still a little concerned that Art Smith's trying to, overthink things here a little bit.
Yeah, I that could be the case. I just hear all the stuff about him running out of the slot and like, whatever. Like, if you go and look at the stats from last year, guys, like I know it didn't really show up. I actually think that they utilized Pitts fairly correctly. If you look at how many where they just lined him up straight up out wide as a wide receiver, like he lined up like 50% of the time, just like straight up as a wide receiver and like creating huge mismatches. And I'm wondering if we don't see sets, Adam, where it's like Drake London on one side, Kyle Pitts on another, and then Bijan Robinson in the slot. And like now the defenses are going to be like, what in the hell do we do like with this? So I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just trying to think if I ran this team, like what I would do. And, but I've at least heard that he was going to play a decent amount of slot.
That's one of those things that I think is a great evaluation thing where we look at week one and we see what Arthur Smith wants to do. So let's talk about the Falcons side of that for a second. I think the opportunity this week, if you want to play it, if you just feel like you want to have something on this game, I think the opportunity is actually on Tyler Algier, because I think that Atlanta wants to run the ball, and the steam is going to all blow up on Bijan Robinson. Everyone who's watched a preseason highlight knows that Bijan Robinson is there. but they're going to run. And if Tyler Algier is going to get 12 carries in this game, I would be stunned if he did not get between 10 and 12 carries. Now, on the other side of this thing, just to add one wrinkle to what you guys said about Frank Reich coming in on the offensive side, keep in mind, Thomas Davis comes over as the offensive coordinator from the McVay tree. I read some stuff in the preseason about there being a little bit of a philosophical break between Reich and between Davis. Reich, a head coach who likes a little more traditional offense, Davis wanting to be a little more McVay-like and open things up at the pass. That's something for me where I would definitely want to see a little bit more before I try to evaluate what's going on with Carolina.
Yeah, it's just it's a weird game in which I am not going to bet it, but I really feel like I should be on the Carolina side.
If all this offseason steam is correct, though, Atlanta better win this game. Let's put it that way.
Yes. Yeah, that's for sure. If you have an Atlanta win total, then this better be a win for you. That's for sure.